Hey guys, in this video we are looking at the Stellar X2 microphone. I was sent the microphone by TechZone Audio Products. They asked me to show you how to connect it to a laptop or a smartphone because this is a large diaphragm condenser microphone with an XLR output. Connecting and setting it up is a little more complicated than just plugging it in. Now they did send this microphone to me for free. They did not pay me to do this video though, and I'm under no obligation to give it a review or positive review for that matter. But I will be going over it, showing you how it sounds, and giving you perhaps some comparisons. Okay, so let's just open up what they sent. Came in a nice metal case for a microphone at this price range of $200 US currently. It comes with a pretty nice case considering. Little case, a warranty card, and a signed test certificate saying it went 14-hour burn-in test and other inspections. Cool. We have a shock mount that helps with vibrations. We have a foam windscreen that's to help with plosives. And then we have the actual microphone. And that's it. The microphone is pretty heavy feeling. It looks pretty standard for a large diaphragm condenser. The base can screw off, for example, although don't know why you do that unless you want to get inside. XLR output. This is a cardioid pickup pattern. There's no toggle switch to switch between different patterns. What that means is it picks up audio in front of the microphone and it rejects noise from around it. Now you won't be able to tell very easily, but inside this microphone is a 1-inch capsule that's gold sputtered, and that is the large diaphragm condenser. And you might see microphones that look like this on Amazon for maybe $20, $50. Things like this, right? They look very similar, but there's quite a big difference. This is kind of a fake condenser microphone. It uses the same type of capsule that's in a lavalier, kind of what I'm wearing here. You might as well just buy a lav mic versus buying one of those. This though is a proper studio condenser. It has a proper condenser capsule, and so there's a reason it's $200. And for $200, this is, competing with maybe like the AT2020 by Audio-Technica. So it's a pretty good price range for a large diaphragm if you're trying to get into the market. Okay, so we're going to see how that sounds. Now to set this up, you need a stand, right? And the stand you probably will want is either, a heavy-duty stand, or what we're going to look for is maybe a boom arm or maybe a floor stand that extends out. For this example, we're going to just use a small desk mount. And it's important that when you get a desk mount, you get something that's hefty. If it's light, because this shock mount extends out, it might tip over if you get something too light because this microphone is kind of heavy. So what we're going to do is we are going to, there's these little clips here, we squeeze them, and then we can put the microphone in. Okay. And we don't need the foam windscreen, that's in case you get plosives. We'll see about that. The little cardioid pattern, you want to point that to your mouth, and you want to adjust this. Okay. So this is how you'd be using it pretty much, and you'd be speaking into the microphone. If you end up getting pops and like a lot of wind noise, you could pop the phone windscreen on. That will help reduce those mouth noises, let's say. Okay, so I'm just trying that. Okay, you can always take these little clips off once you have it installed. And I'm going to actually do that just because I don't like having them there. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. There we go. Less is more. Okay. Now, the way we connect this up is with a microphone preamplifier. So a very standard popular one would be like the Scarlett by Focusrite. This is the Solo, but the 2i2 is also pretty popular. And then we also need an XLR cable. So we can see that the microphone has a XLR input on the bottom, this 3-prong plug. And when we buy an XLR cable, we can then plug it in until it snaps, and then we can plug it in to the Scarlett. Okay. There's different types of preamps you can buy. You know, just an example, this one here is a couple $100 or less. This one here is $800. So there's different pricing, different price ranges, and the more you spend, you tend to get more features, lower noise. But because this is a condenser microphone and not a dynamic microphone, you don't really need a fancy preamp. You can usually get by with something basic. The reason for that partly is this microphone takes power. So this will provide 48 volts over this XLR cable to the microphone. There's a little circuit in here that amplifies the signal a small bit and then sends it back to the preamp, and the preamp amplifies it even more. Okay, so if we want to connect this to our computer, we can, here's an example of a computer. We can plug it in. I think we have a XLR cable here, USB cable, wrong one. We need a USB-C cable for the Focusrite Scarlett 3rd Gen. Cool. And we can then plug it into the back, and then we can have our computer and we can just plug it in to the USB. Okay, so that's if we were plugging into a computer. This is just a mini computer, but if you had a desktop, that could work. With something like a laptop, most laptops may not have the full-size USB these days. So let's give you an example of a MacBook. MacBooks have these USB-C Thunderbolt ports. So if you want to plug that in, we need an adapter usually. Either a USB to USB cable, or if you don't, you need a USB to USB Type-C adapter, and that can plug in. Okay. Let's turn on the laptop. Okay, and we now get power to the preamp, and the key here is we want to turn on 48 volts. So on this preamp is a button, 48 volts, and that turns on the microphone. If we are using something like this preamp, the toggle switches are on the back. Okay, now before we get into testing the microphone, let's show you how you can connect it perhaps to a smartphone. So here we have an Android smartphone. There's different ways you can connect to a smartphone, and some of them are more compatible with different Android apps than others. Because I have a Pixel smartphone here, it has a headset input jack. And so I can use a device like this, which is an XLR to 3.5 millimeter adapter. So in this case, I can plug into this. This has a 9-volt battery, so it's portable. I can then plug this into the Android device. Okay, so here we have Video Ninja set up, for example, And if I tap on the microphone, you might see that there's a little green bar that moves. The key here is we need to have 48 volts enabled, and we also need the gain set correctly. If it's too high or too low, your Android device will reject the device as a headset. Okay, it's a little bit tricky, but once you have it set up, it works well. If you try to plug in via the USB, most browsers will not accept, for example, the Preamp as a device. You would need to use a special native application that supports UVC capable devices. The browser will not support that. So for the browser to work, you need to come in through a headset. Something like an iPhone, Apple thought the headset port was a bad idea. The problem there is, if you want this to work, you still need to come in through some sort of headset. And so we're going to use this adapter. I'll link to it in the description. We can plug that into the Lightning port. We'll open up Video Ninjas just so we can validate that this works. Okay. Add camera, allow. Now we're going to plug the adapter into the headset port. And test. Test, 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 test. I don't know if you see that, but it's moving. Okay, so we can get it working on an iPhone, but we need a special 3.5 to Lightning adapter. Not all Lightning adapters will work. I'll mention this one in the description, but in my testing, like 1 and 3 seem to be compatible, and it runs into the same issue that an iPhone will have. If you have a device like a Focusrite, it will not be picked up by your smartphone as a headset, and so it will not work with the browser. It would only work with special applications that support a UVC device. For it to work with the browser, which is in some other apps, you would need it to be registered as a headset. At least that's from my impression of what the issue is. Okay, so we have shown now how to connect it to a laptop. Usually that's plug and play. If it doesn't work right away, you restart the computer, try it again. You just need to get a preamp. A preamp is about $100 to $300, depending on which one you get. Some of them can be much more expensive, but something like this was about $100, and it supports 9-volt battery, portable, and it works well with mobile devices. Might be a little bit hard to find that nowadays, though. Okay, so that's how we connect this device up. You do need the XLR cable. I'd recommend spending like $20, $30 on one. For one this short, you might get away with $10, but you don't want to get the cheapest XLR cable. You want to get something that's shielded, because if it's not shielded, your phone produces electromagnetic interference, and it can get picked up in the cable like an antenna. So you want something that's shielded so that you can reject interference. And a good cable length for an XLR cable is anywhere between 3 and 10 feet, in my opinion. Judge how long you need it. How far away is the mic from the preamp? How far is it away from a camera? Now, speaking of camera, one other thing we can do is we can connect a microphone to a DSLR camera. It is actually kind of tricky to use a professional camera like this with a external microphone. And what you can do is, if your camera supports it, not all cameras do, you can use the line out of your preamp. So you wouldn't plug this into your computer, you would plug the preamp, you plug this into a a phone charger, let's say, something like a 5-volt, 2-amp charger. You don't plug it into the computer. And then you take some aux cords, and connect left and right to a 3.5mm adapter, let's say, and plug that into your camera's line input port. So line out to line in. And this will provide power. And now the microphone will be sending its signal directly into your camera, and you'll get synchronized audio. So your voice and the audio will be in sync. If you brought this into the computer and you brought the video in separately, the video would most likely be delayed by about 200 milliseconds, and it would be very challenging to synchronize it in conference applications like Zoom or Hangouts. Okay. Not all cameras have a line input port, but that's something you can check out and consider buying a camera with one. Okay. Now, let's plug this in and let's do some tests and comparisons. Okay, so now we're listening to the audio from the Stellar X2 microphone. You know, I'm about 6-7 inches away from the capsule, and I'm recording onto a MacBook Air using Audacity. That's a free piece of software that lets you record audio. And we're using the Focusrite Scarlett Solo to capture. And the audio is peaking around -12 decibels, and I'll normalize that in post. Okay, so this is how this microphone sounds. You move it around. Now I'm going to spin the microphone around to give you an idea of the noise rejection. So this is me speaking into the microphone on the side. This is me speaking into the microphone from behind. Again from the side. And again from the front. So it's the loudest from the front, or it should be. And that is partly because it's a cardioid pickup pattern. So it tries to get noise from the front and it tries to reject noise from the back. I'm in a very quiet studio. So home studio, it's not perfect, but we'll pause and let the microphone just try to listen to the room. Okay, so that is about the lowest noise floor you can expect from a microphone like this. We have some other microphones here. We have the Samsung CL8A, and we also have here the CAD M179. These are just similar large diaphragm condenser microphones, XLR output. They're about the same price range, so we're going to give them a quick comparison. So now we're testing the Samsung CL8A for comparison. Again, I'm about 6 inches away from the capsule. It is also about a 1-inch diaphragm condenser microphone, large diaphragm condenser. All the settings are pretty default, flat, and cardioid pickup pattern. I found it to be a little bit quieter than the Stellar X2, so I had to increase the gain a small bit. But otherwise, this is how this microphone sounds in comparison. Now we're testing the CAD M179 large diaphragm condenser microphone. Again, I have it set to the cardioid pickup pattern. It's flat, everything's pretty much default. You notice that with this stand, the microphone falls over because it's weighted away. So this is a flimsy stand. If you do go with a desk mounted stand, you want something that has a little bit of heft so it won't fall over. But yeah, gain is about the same as the Samsung CL8A. This is how the M179 sounds, sorry. Just to give you a comparison to the Stellar X2. And let's jump back to that microphone. So now we're back to the Stellar X2. I had to turn the gain back down because this is a hotter microphone than the other two. Now we have this foam windscreen, and just to give you a demonstration. of how this sounds. Now, why you might want the phone windscreen is if you have plosives like sharp P's, or if you speak with a lot of wind in your voice. This will help reject some of that noise that hits the capsule and causes distortion. You can also buy a pop filter, and that will help a little bit more. But this is a pretty simple, cheap solution to the problem. Overall, the microphone is a very neutral sounding microphone according to the website. It has a flat frequency response. It seems to be made of high quality parts with a K67 styled capsule. It seems to come in a vintage version as well. Price on their website is $199.99 with free shipping. Frequency range of 20 to 20 kilohertz. Sensitivity of -31 dB. An impedance of 140 kilohertz. And it weighs 346 grams. Okay. So yeah, that's the end of this video. You can hit me up in the comment section if you have questions. Hopefully I helped explain how to connect this microphone or similar microphones to a computer or to a smartphone, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thanks, guys. Have a great time.